All right, welcome to Young Justice 101. This is the panel where we teach you everything you ever wanted to know about Young Justice except things that would spoil future seasons.
But wait until they see what we have prepared for them today.
We have prepared absolutely nothing. So, what we are hoping to do today is a Q&A. There's a Q&A mic right back there, so if people want to start lining up at the mic, if you've got questions, happy to answer anything about the 26 issues of the comic book, which Christopher Jones was the artist on.
And to be clear, thank you, and to be clear, while I didn't work on the show, I have seen it, and I am opinionated. So.
Or happy to answer questions about process.
Sure.
Happy to answer questions about the first 2 seasons of the television series.
We need half light. Half audience light? Awesome. Thank you.
And again, so no one has any questions because I'm not seeing anyone at that mic.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
All right.
All right.
So it begins.
So when you made the show, I'm assuming like when you started, you had plans for seasons 3, 4, 5, and so on, and then again with the issues. Were there characters that you had planned on saving for then that you would really wanted to work with that you thought, oh, I'm really excited about bringing in, character X, Y, or Z, but never had the chance to?
Absolutely. I mean, again, given enough episodes or issues, we would have hit on a lot more characters. Pretty much the entire DC universe was at our disposal, and we definitely enjoyed playing in it.
Yeah.
There were certain characters that we had...
Sorry, I'm late.
We were warming them up for you.
Thank you.
Marina Sturgis is the voice of Queen Bee on Young Justice. So yeah, we were planning. There were characters that there were some characters that we hoped to get into season 2, but because the order for season 2 was 20 instead of 26, some of our season 2 plot lines had to be pushed either forward or back. Yes, we would have had a lot more characters.
In the episode Misplaced, very early on in the episode when Billy Batson's looking out on the street, he sees 2 kids, a brunette, Caucasian girl, and an African-American boy playing. Her mother's watching. Her mother disappears. She screams, "Where's my mother?" Those aren't actually Mary and Freddie, are they? Lieutenant and Sergeant Marvel's civilian.
No, I know who you meant. Yeah, I honestly can't remember. I have to look at it again.
Okay.
I apologize, but it's been a while, and I'd have to look at it again to see if they were age appropriate to be Mary and Freddie.
Because there would certainly be plans to bring them in.
Oh yeah, we were definitely going to do Mary and Freddie. In fact, again, that one of the ideas for season 2 was them, and then that was one that we were going to do in the comic because it got squeezed out of season 2. But I can't remember if those 2 kids were age appropriate to be Mary and Freddie.
I have to ask this because it is such a weird character to pull out of your hat. Why Clarion as part of the light?
That was Brandon Vietti's idea. When we were compiling lists of villains, I was a big advocate for Queen Bee. And DC has 2 Queen Bees, and so when I wrote down Queen Bee, Brandon looked up the wrong one, the one that actually looks like a bee.
Which I thought I was. No, I did, for the longest time.
And he was like, I don't know about this. It seems a little like not the tone of our show. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's great, and and he's like, really? I did. And then we were in his office, so I'm like, what are you talking about? And he pulls up this one, and I'm like, no. The other Queen Bee, and I showed him. He's like, oh, I like that. But I had written down Wotan, and he's like, no, let's use Clarion because although Clarion is eternal and ageless, he, he's a kid. And we were like, well, we're doing a show about kids. Let's have one of the members of the light actually be a kid. So, and that was great. Of course, Tom Adcox is amazing as Clarion. And Clarion's just so much fun and
Great.
so nuts that it was a great
Yeah,
choice.
'cause I mean, there are certainly
And
some.
by the way, you look great, Clarion.
Thank you.
I mean, there are certainly some members of the Light that are who you would expect. You would expect Lex Luthor. You would expect Ra's al Ghul. Vandal Savage makes sense. You know, Queen Bee was not one I would have expected as one of the, you know, this core group of villains, but she worked out great.
Thank you.
So you were saying as an aside during that last question, you thought you were an insect person
I did.
when
I
you.
actually thought she was a bee. I don't know if you remember. I actually asked you, "Do you want me to, make my voice sound like Buzzy?" And you said no. And I'm like, "Well, that's interesting, because I'm a bee." And then I saw a picture of her, and I went, "Okay." He never showed me what I looked like when he hired me, so I just went on for a long time thinking that I was, the yellow and black striped being.
Instead, I just cast a type.
Yeah.
Thank
He loves
you
me
for
really.
I
He
really
does.
do.
He
I
does. He
adore
loves me
her.
really. He loves me really. He's the only person who hires me to do voiceovers, so I have to love him. No one else hires me in Hollywood to do voices.
No one else hires me to do
which means
voiceover
they're
except
crazy
me.
because they're awesome.
So thank you for bringing Clarion into the light, because he is pretty kick-ass, if I do say so.
Thank you.
He's one of those villains that you love to hate so much. He's so annoying. Oh. Yeah, it's like it's not just that he's threatening to, take over the world or anything. It's like you want to hit him in the face with a shovel. You're just like, shut up.
Yeah.
My question is about the time jump that happened. I believe it was at the start of the second season where we left.
I know
for
your
several
mic,
years.
but I'm having
Yeah, I can't hear.
trouble
I
hearing.
can't
Can you
hear
lean
him.
into
Can you
that?
hear me now?
Yes.
My question is about the time jump that was at the start of the second season. I was
Did we
curious,
do a time jump at the start of the second? Oh, yeah.
I didn't notice.
I was curious if that was kind of foreshadowing future time jumps so that you would build the team to be this like constantly multi-generational group of
Yeah,
teenage
we
superheroes.
plan. I'm not going to say it was because we weren't necessarily planning always for it to be exactly 5 years, but the plan was absolutely to do a time jump between each season, so that each season would be in more or less real time. Not that we didn't skip a day or two in there, sometimes as much as a week, I guess. But in essence, each of our first two seasons were 6 months. The first one ran from July 4th to January 1st, and second season ran from January 1st to July 4th. So it was kind of like a year in the life. It's just that we stuck 5 years in between them. And we would have done a time jump before season 3 and before every season, because again, the show is about growing up, coming of age, and you just can't show characters come of age in 6 months or even a year. It takes time to do that, and we wanted the show to have this generational feel both between the mentors and the proteges, but also between the sort of what we used to call the senior class, junior class, freshman class kind of thing with the young heroes themselves, and see how they were growing and changing.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a question. I know you had voice actors that were cast in different roles together, such as Nolan North played Superman and Superboy, obviously. But you also cast Crispin Freeman in a couple of different roles, and I've wondered if you had that planned from the beginning and what was the reasoning behind it, what your choice for that.
Yeah, Crispin, we knew that, okay, spoilers here if you haven't seen the show. We knew that the Roy Harper that we were meeting in episode 1 was a clone of the real Roy Harper. We knew that Jim Harper was also a clone of the real Roy Harper. So we very intentionally cast Crispin to play both roles. And the way we sort of justified it is Jim says, oh yeah, he's my nephew. So you sort of feel like, all right, they're in the same family. It makes sense that they've got similar voices. But we knew those were all going to be clones, so we knew Crispin would be playing Roy Harper, Jim Harper, and the original Roy Harper. So, that was all very intentional.
So at this point, Are you willing to share anything more about the circumstances of Ocean Master's disgrace?
Do you have pie?
I could, if you could come to Hawaii, I could get you some really good pie there.
No, I mean, the honest thing is it seems kind of obvious to me what happened. I mean, all you have to do is sort of extrapolate from what we did in the comics with Ocean Master, but I'm not going to actually give spoilers out. I thought I said that at the very beginning of the panel.
Well, you said you wouldn't give out spoilers for any future seasons. This was...
Or future comics, so.
Okay. I just want to say that I really liked what you did with Ocean Master in the comic. He never actually got to speak except as the silhouette in the show. But in the comic, I really liked that he's not a racist, and that's like the worst thing about him. That he's basically...
He's making use of racists
Yes.
to get as a means to his own end.
I really
Yeah,
thought
he's-
that was a nice twist
story.
on that.
Yeah, that was actually a story that Kevin Hopps wrote for episode 8, Downtime, and that was the one story that our boss, Sam Register, said, this one's not working for me. Like, he liked all the other bits, like, Dick and Bruce, and McGann and Connor, and Artemis, and he liked the whole relationship between Aquaman and Calder and all that stuff, but he thought the actual A story, the action with Ocean Master and the Purists, he wanted something more direct.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were doing all these cutaways. So he wanted an action story that was more direct and straightforward. And so we switched Ocean Master out, did the Black Mana thing, which worked out really well for us because of how important Black Mana would wind up being in the series. But we had this great story for Ocean Master, so we did it in the comics.
All right, thank you.
One of the things I loved about that story is that you also got the comic book version of the first kiss between McGann and Superboy, for those that were following the story there, which still doesn't negate them having their first kiss in the show, which I thought was kind of like, how did he pull that off?
Yeah, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation has its advantages.
Yes, it does.
All right. I have a massive love of relatively obscure comic characters, and you used one, and I kind of freaked out.
We only
And
use one?
Fair enough. And
Topo is mainstream?
I know you love mythology and everything, so it's been bugging me for a long time now, and I have to ask, was Firebrand married to Shining Knight in Earth 16?
I'm not going to do spoilers, so I'm just not going to do that.
Really pissing him off, Greg.
I know, I'm sorry, but
He's so good at that.
He is. It's like, why the F are you here?
Come to the Young Justice Q&A and have Greg refuse to answer all your questions.
I am perfectly fine with you guys answering that question.
Don't point at me.
It doesn't have to be accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, this isn't the Young Justice Q&A, it's just the Young Justice Q. No way.
All right, so I'm also happy to establish with clarity that I will answer questions with complete bullshit. In other words, as long as I've been clear that I am now going to completely mess with your heads, I'm willing to do that too if you prefer. If we run out of actual questions, because there's not a lot of line there, then yeah, I'll happily lie to you.
So obviously with so many adaptations of DC things, especially with Batman or Superman, when you were taking this, were there certain things that show up a lot in adaptations that you wanted to avoid, like certain characterizations that it's like, okay, we don't want to do this because of how often it's been done, or sort of thing?
I don't know about how often, but there are interpretations of certain characters, Batman in particular, that don't work for me. Like the notion of Batman as a really bad dad doesn't work for me. In other words, there was a time in New Teen Titans when the reason Robin became Nightwing, this is going way back, was because he had a big fight with Bruce. And I'm like, wait, he doesn't need to fight with Bruce in order to want to grow up and take on his own identity. I I grew up, moved out of the house, and I love my dad. You know, I mean, those things don't have to go hand in hand. You don't have to rebel to grow up. I'm not saying you can't, and certainly there's some characters that do rebel. Artemis rebelled, you know, that kind of thing. But it doesn't make sense to me. The whole reason that Bruce would take on a sidekick in the first place was because he didn't want Dick Grayson to go through what he went through as a child. And so that means he's going to be a decent father. Not perfect, but decent and solid. And Bruce has got to have, can't be the world's greatest detective and have no common sense about human relationships.
Yes.
I don't believe that for a second. And so, you know, one of the things we were very conscious of trying to do was Bruce is intense without a doubt, particularly when he's got the cowl on, but he's not an asshole. And we tried to show that in the way he talked to Clark Kent, the way he talked to Dick Grayson. We didn't get a lot of time for Alfred in the show, but in those small moments in the comic and the show where he's interacting with Alfred, we just wanted to get a sense of, and Wonder Woman for that matter, of Bruce as a human being, not just as a guy with a mission. The mission is still all important, but it doesn't preclude him from being decent. So there were definitely things in the comics that we chose to avoid. The notion, you know, and part of it is actually going back to older comics. You know, in older comics, Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent were good friends. Superman, Batman were good friends. So this notion of them as at each other's throats all the time simply because they have different philosophies, I never bought into it. So we just didn't do it. And I'm sure there were other examples, but Batman's sort of the obvious one because everyone knows Batman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have a question for Marina.
Oh.
Just wondering, we've heard a lot of rumors about Greg Weisman being very difficult to work with, and I just wanted to know how you handled working with such a personality.
What's that, darling? What did you say?
How did you handle working with such a personality such as his?
For once in my life, I'm going to be diplomatic because
Oh my God, that's so damning.
yeah, because as I said, he's the only bloke that hires me in Hollywood to do voices. So if I piss him off, that's my voice career ended, right? Actually, he's not. I have to say, as Greg said yesterday, you know, when we were recording Gargoyles, we used to do it like a radio play, like we did yesterday. And he and Jamie, I mean, first of all, he was sitting in the what, you know, what's
Control
that
room.
Control room, that's what it's called. Yeah, he was sitting in the control room and pretty much just sitting on the sofa most of the time, not saying anything.
Well, I was whispering to Jamie.
Oh, so he's whispering to Jamie. So I get my notes from Jamie, the director. It was actually a joy to work with this bloke over here. He was lovely. Everyone on both the series that I did with Greg were wonderful. I only ever had one. Well, let's say I butted head once. And it wasn't with Greg and it wasn't with Jamie. It was when we were doing, I don't know if you remember, we were doing the press. Remember we did the press day?
Sure, we're talking about.
We're talking about Gargoyles now, because I've never done press for Young Justice, because you'd never asked me. And, but when we were doing press for Gargoyles, Jonathan and I went in. They didn't, yeah, so, you know, they said, you know, just come in, don't dress up, be casual, we're just going to film you, you know, recording and stuff. And I was wearing a t-shirt that had racism with a big cross through it, right? Do you remember this? Do you remember any of this?
I don't remember.
No.
I thought you were going someplace different. So.
No. So anyway, the Disney publicist said I couldn't wear that shirt. Oh. So I said, oh, because Disney is for racism? And they made me change my shirt, and that's why I'm wearing it in
You've
all
been
the
on
pictures.
the It's a Small World ride?
I have actually, but what does that mean? Oh, right, yeah, That was my outside voice that did this. Right, okay. Well, yeah, so I had to change my shirt, which it looks like in all the press photos I'm wearing pajamas because I think someone gave me their shirt to wear because I couldn't wear my End Racism shirt, which I thought was great for kids to see a grown person wearing that message, but God forbid at Disney. But no, to go back, Greg he's a wonderful boss. He really is. Not difficult to work with at all. Trust me, I've worked with difficult bosses. And he was a dreamboat.
I actually think of myself as a really good boss and a really lousy employee.
Probably.
Bosses don't. The people who work on my shows generally think relatively highly of me. The people for whom I work generally think relatively not.
That's the same as me. That's the same as me. The people I work with love me, and my bosses hate me.
I get fired a lot.
Yeah, I don't get fired. I don't get fired. I get like punished in other ways. Yeah. Yes.
In a season 2 episode, I saw a little Easter egg in the trailer.
Come closer to the mic, baby.
Can't hear you.
Pretend you're a rock star. Put your top lip on the mic. Mind you, don't do that because everyone's got germs.
That's not how.
Yeah.
It's not how I was trained to sing. Anyway, in the season 2 episode, I saw a Easter egg in the credits of, in my opinion, the best Batgirl ever. Was there plans to bring in Stephanie Brown permanently?
I'm sorry.
Still didn't hear.
Plans to bring in Stephanie Brown.
We brought in Stephanie Brown. She was in episode 10 of season 2. She was there.
That's what I meant.
That's
like,
what he meant.
Like to be Batgirl.
Whether she would become Batgirl at some point.
I'm not going to give you a spoiler. How many Make it up?
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you a spoiler.
Stephanie
Brown. Brown's first superhero identity was...
Spoiler.
Thank you.
Stephanie Brown would have broken Bruce Wayne's back and become Batman in season 3.
That would have been awesome.
By the way, there was a massive hint in the radio play that I am stunned that no one picked up on. At some point, I'm sure Convergence will put that radio play someplace where people can view it. You guys should look at it carefully. There is a huge spoiler in that radio play, and not a single person has asked me about it.
Wow.
I haven't heard it yet.
Too late! No, that wasn't a spoiler.
Next question, please.
Hello. I was wondering, did you guys have any input in those Flaming Sea edits that Conan did? Also, did the Flaming Sea help Young Justice ratings at all?
I definitely don't know the answer to the second question. I tend to think the answer is no, because it's just a very different audience, very different demographic watching Conan at 11 p.m. But I don't know the answer to that. In terms of the Flaming Sea segments where Flaming Sea was cut into scenes from Young Justice, yes, Brandon and I produced those segments. Then the moment everyone, I mean, keep in mind, Bruce Timm designed Flaming Sea with Conan. You all saw that on screen. But those actual segments where we put Flaming Sea into Young Justice, that was Phil Barassa, our character designer, doing a version of what Bruce had done that fit into Young Justice. That was Bruce Greenwood, the voice of Batman, doing the voice of Flaming Sea, and that was Brandon and I producing it. And then the moment it started to work and they decided that they wanted to do something with Flaming Sea, they took it away from us, which was okay. It was fine, but we were busy on Young Justice. Yeah, we did those segments where you saw Flaming Sea in actual Young Justice sequences. That was mostly Brandon. I helped out a little, but it was mostly Brandon.
I was kind of hoping you guys would have done the diner scene with Bruce and Clark with the Flaming Sea instead, but I guess
we talked about a lot of different sequences to do, and some of it had to do with literally because we were on a very tight schedule for that. Budget wasn't a problem, but time was a problem in order to get them up and on to Conan when the Conan people wanted it. And so we were sort of inhibited a bit by what, our options were inhibited by what we could do in the time available. And at some point, my sense of things from watching the appearances on Conan is initially Conan found it very amusing, and then after 2 or 3 of them, I think he found it less and less amusing. And so I think the Conan people lost interest in it a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't know that. It's not like I talked to the Conan people, or they let me talk to them, or anything like that.
My question's for Marina. Once you found out that you weren't a giant black and yellow insect, did you go back and do any reading or research of the old DC comics that Queen Bee was in? Or since this is newer, did you rely on Greg and the script and all of those for your characterization of her voice?
Okay. See, there always is a question at every convention that my answer, whether it's Star Trek or Gargoyles or anything, that my answer is going to piss y'all off.
No.
Is that this one?
This is it.
Okay.
This is the question. Don't do comics.
She's not a geek.
I'm not a geek. I am the opposite of a geek.
She is
I'm
a sports chick.
I'm a jock.
So you relied on the wonderful script work that was already there.
It was
the
there.
wonderful
You know what?
writing.
All nice cover.
Right, it's all there.
You know what I did? Actually,
It's
what
all there.
I always trusted that he cast me because he knew I was right for the part. And to be honest, we're handed the script when we walk in. Do we get sent the script ahead of time?
Yeah, one night ahead.
One night
Because
ahead.
that's how much time,
Yeah,
that's all the time
exactly.
we can afford.
And trust me, I don't read it though on one night ahead. I go in and I look at it. We've usually got a little time while we're waiting for everyone to arrive, and I look at it, before we read. I don't do comics and I don't do animation because it never appealed to me. I'm sorry. I'm actually, I have to say, I'm amazed. I thought, Young Justice panel, this is going to be full of kids. Not a kid in sight, grown-ups everywhere. And I have to say, I was thinking while Greg was talking, these questions are way more intelligent than any Star Trek panel I've ever been to. Sorry. No, honestly.
Oh my God, that Star Trek panel in Denver, I was ready to slit my throat.
Yeah, I mean, no, honestly, you guys really know your subject. And I'm not saying that Star Trek people don't know their subject. Not at all. They do, trust me. It's just that you seem to find the depth in your passion. I mean, I can't tell you the times, the question at a panel is, what's it like to work with Patrick Stewart? If I hear that one more time, I'm going to open my veins, but I'm very impressed with the knowledge that you have of Young Justice and all the different things that happen and all the subtexts and the undercurrents and everything. I've never, even as a kid, I didn't like animation or comics. I liked books and real people acting. But I did like puppets.
Puppets are awesome.
I did. I liked Stingray and I liked Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds
yes.
are
I'll go. Yeah. So I liked puppets and I liked real people, but I never got into the animation. So I'm really sorry, but it's what? To each their own. You know, it takes all sorts, and I'm glad you guys enjoy it and enjoy our work. But I've never seen Young Justice.
But you contributed to something that we love, and you did it really well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
you
appreciate
did.
that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Hello. I think you pissed
I
them
had
off
to
on
go
that.
back. I had to go.
I don't think you pissed them off enough.
I didn't.
Try
actually,
again.
My husband, before I came out this weekend, said to me, "Well, you're doing a radio play of gargoyles?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, do you remember what Demona sounds like?" And I went, "No." He went, "Shit, you better bone up before you go and do that radio play, Miss Curtis, because everybody in the audience is going to know what Demona sounds like." So I had to do my homework because it was a long time ago. Young Justice, not so much, but.
Well, your character did some bad things, especially in the comic, which you never saw at all.
Exactly, yeah.
Queen Bee wasn't nice.
No, well, that's good, because I don't like being... I prefer to be nasty than nice. And the only reason I got cast as Deanna Troi and was nice was because I was so nervous they'd never have met the real me. In which, if they had met the real me, I wouldn't be sitting here today, because I would be back in England, broke. And, you know, working in a store somewhere.
By the way, this all it's more of a gargoyle story, but it all worked to our advantage because I think after 6 years of playing Deanna Troi, the nicest sentient being in the galaxy,
Ever in the history of the universe.
it really freed her up to play Demona.
Yeah.
So basically, you get really famous for playing an incredibly nice character, and then get to spend the rest of your career playing against type.
No, wait a second. No. Deanna was against type.
That's what I'm saying.
Deanna was the only nice person I've ever played.
But I'm saying now you get to play these villains. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's against type for Deanna Troi.
Yeah, it is, but actually it's not against type for Marina. Deanna was against type for Marina. Queen Bee, Demona, Marina. Yeah. More. Yes.
Well, that's actually a good segue into my question.
Okay.
To you three personally, the whole panel, what do you think makes a good, compelling hero and a compelling villain?
I hate villains that are two-dimensional and act like they think they're the villain. It's far more interesting to have conflict between characters who firmly believe they're in the right than to have someone who's just a mustache-twirling bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I actually did a movie which I hope you all go watch on Netflix, because it's in my opinion, best work I've ever done. And it's a movie that no one saw, so that's why I'm asking you to go see it, to rent it or get it on Netflix. It's a movie called Green Street Hooligans 2, number 2. It was the remake, it was, the sequel, Stand Your Ground. And I play this really evil prison guard in a men's prison. And I remember when I had a little meeting with my fellow prison guard, who said to me at one point, well, what's her redeeming quality? And I said, she has no redeeming quality. And he said, no, everyone has a redeeming quality. And I said, no, she doesn't. And when I spoke to the director, he said, no, she doesn't have a redeeming quality. And I said, no, I know, Jessie. She has no redeeming qualities. She's evil through and through. And so that's how I like to approach roles. You have to commit. You have to commit to it. I don't have a problem as an actor playing evil. And that may be because I'm English. Because there's more to that. There's a lot of American actors who have a problem being unsympathetic. They don't like being seen as unsympathetic. And that's never bothered me, because my job is to play the part in truth. And so Demona totally believed, Demona totally believed that she was right. Queen Bee totally believes that she's right. I always felt that you have to commit to something 100% and not worry about how it's perceived by the audience. and whether they're going to like you or not. That's part of my personality in life. I don't care if people like me or not. I do care if my friends and my family like me or not, but total strangers, I could give a shit, really. Never going to see them again. Who cares, right? So, yeah. So that's me, and I like to put that. I like to commit to a part like that. So, yeah. I just want to be true. To me, acting is truth. So you have to be true and not worry about how it's perceived.
For me, a hero is someone who strives to do something that's incredibly difficult. That is, trying to do the right thing, I think is hard. I think it's really hard. I think people underestimate how hard it is to do the right thing, because it's so easy not to. So someone who on an ongoing basis tries to do the right thing, I think is very impressive. Or even in a situational basis, does something heroic. I don't believe heroes are without fear. I don't believe in that.
I think that's what makes a hero, if they're scared and they still do it.
Yeah, they overcome the fear. That's the kind of thing. In terms of a villain, there are a couple things. One, I look for some connection to the hero, something that puts the villain in essence, it makes the villain a dark mirror of the hero in one manner or another. If Batman is order, the Joker is chaos. And if Superman is strength, Lex Luthor is intellect. And so I'm always looking for what is it that connects the villain to the hero. It doesn't have to be a history, although obviously a backstory that connects them, like Damona and Goliath, for example, is fantastic. But it doesn't have to be history, but there's got to be some even metaphorical connection between them to make a villain a good opponent. Then the thing about characters, particularly like Xanatos or Vandal Savage, Queen Bee definitely, and Damona, one of the things that I got tired of was stupid villains. I agree with Chris. I'm tired of villains who literally think, I'm the villain. It's like, no one thinks that.
Right.
Hitler didn't think he was the villain. He never thought that for a second.
But he really was.
He really was. But he never thought that, and so I don't like that, but I also don't like, I'm tired. It's not that there aren't dumb bad guys out there. There are plenty of them, but in real life. But I was tired from a fictional standpoint of villains who in essence defeated themselves. Or when villains teamed up. One of the things that Brandon and I talked about at the very beginning of Young Justice is we didn't want the bad guys to be defeated because they were infighting. We didn't want a secret society of supervillains who, in essence, sabotaged themselves. So all the heroes had to do was sort of survive for 20 minutes, because in the last 3 minutes you knew those villains were going to betray each other or get pissed off at each other and blow it. So one of the things we decided about the light right off the bat was that Vandal, Raish, Queen Bee, Ocean Master, Clarion, and Brain, that they got along, that they had that they each had their own individual goals, but they had a common interest that was important enough to them that they would make allowances for their differing points of view on certain issues, but they would pull together as a coherent and cohesive unit to further their larger goals. So that was A. And then the other thing that sort of bugs me about villains is I'm tired of petty villains. Particularly, I don't mind it so much if it's like a minor villain, like someone who's working for the big bad guy and you're fighting, and so. But the big bad guy who's got his eye on the big picture, that notion of the guy who, when a flunky screws up, he pushes him off a cliff. I'm so tired of that, because what a waste of the resource. And so one of the things we did, and I would say definitely with Vandal Savage, but this goes back to Xanatos really more than Damona, because Damona did really want to kill everybody. But one of the things about Xanatos was that he wasn't wasteful. I was tired of wasteful villains. So from Xanatos' point of view, he didn't set out to kill the gargoyles unless they were literally in his way for something specific goal of his. But in general, he had no interest in revenge. He had no interest. He's got a line where he says, "Revenge is a sucker's game." He had no interest in any of that because, the gargoyles might prove useful later. And that was the same attitude that we had Vandal Savage take towards the team, which was that people kept asking me, well, if Vandal Savage knows Superman and Batman's secret identity, then why isn't he just killing them? And I'm like, why would he want to? Look what he's accomplished with them around. Look how he's used them. He doesn't need to kill the team. He doesn't need to do that. He needs to thwart them in one manner or another, but killing them is a waste of a resource because from Vandal's point of view, from David Xanatos' point of view, everything is a resource. If you're that smart and your goals are that large, everything is a resource. You don't waste it unless you absolutely need to.
Well, you think Donald Trump, right?
Do I have to?
Well, I'm just as an example. I mean, he's like the prime example. I know it's a weird analogy, but if he hadn't had that whole thing about Obama's birth certificate, he wouldn't want Obama dead, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to use the birth certificate BS, right? So I think that it's the same thing. You don't want the person out of gone because then you have nothing to feed off.
But please tell me that Xanatos is smarter than Donald Trump.
Yes, yes, and he has better hair.
So does Lex Luthor.
Has way better hair.
Next question.
Yes, my question is about recording the voice work for Young Justice. Did you all do it together, like in one big room, or did you all do it separately, then it was mixed together?
No, this is why I love working for this guy. We did, the TNG cast did Family Guy. And, it's Family Guy, it's huge, it's Seth MacFarlane, it's all those things. Not fun. Not fun. You're in a sound booth on your own, with your earphones on. It's acting, obviously it's acting, but to me, acting is reacting. Acting is listening to the other person and reacting to what they're saying. And as talented as Greg or Jamie might be, the way, them saying the other line in my ear, it would not be the same as me, looking at Keith David or looking at Ed Asner as they say their line and reacting to it and hearing how they do it, the real actor. So I love working for this guy, but because of that, I really don't enjoy sitting in a sound booth on my own, recording. To me, acting is about everybody being there.
The ensemble.
The
Whenever possible, we do ensemble recordings. Once in a while,
well, you go in and do one line because, you weren't available that day. Or
right,
whatever.
yeah. I mean, there was a point where I can tell the Tim Curry story. So a few of you probably heard this very, very late last night, but so I apologize for repeating myself, but it's a good story. There was a point in Young Justice, Tim Curry was playing G. Gordon Godfrey on Young Justice, and he was amazing in the part, to the point that we kept writing more and longer speeches for Tim because he just was so great.
He's amazing.
And, but there was a point where he was busy doing something, and we just could not get him for an episode. But we knew his manager told us that he would be available by a certain date, but it was way too late for us to wait in terms of delivering the show. So we said, all right, well, for this one episode, as opposed to Tim recording with the cast, Tim will have to come in after the fact and what we call ADRing, that is recording his voice to match the picture, which is not an easy skill in and of itself. It's a little easier in animation. Lip movements are a little more forgiving in animation than they are in live action, but it's still a skill. It's something you have to sort of learn to do. But what that meant is we need to put a temp track down for the animators to animate to. And so I got drafted by Jamie Thomason, our voice director, to go in and play G. Gordon Godfrey for one episode. And so I go in and I'm reading the lines, and Jamie, presses the button so that I can hear him in the control room, and he's like, no, you got to go slower. He's like, Tim really chews on every syllable, and he really makes something of every word. And so you've got to slow down so that when Tim comes in, he'll have time to do his thing. So I read it a little slower, and Tim was like, no, slower. So I read it a little slower. No, slower, Greg, go slower. I'm like, come on! So I read it a little, you think I'm exaggerating. And so this goes off to be animated, and just to make it worse, Brandon and Jamie and our associate producer David Wilcox are in the control room. I'm in the booth, soundproof glass. I can't hear them unless Jamie's pressing the button. And so, but I can see them, and they are just cracking up. So I'm thinking, okay, I know what's going on here. They're making fun of me. They'll use one, maybe not the very first take, but they'll use one of those middle takes, and now they're just messing with me. So I'm like, fine, I'll play along. So when he says slower, I'm like, so I read it a little slower. And I thought, all right, I know what they're up to. So then the animation comes back, and that's the track they use. Now, I don't consider myself an actor at all, really, though I do a little voice acting on shows that I produce. Frankly, it's the principle of the thing. I get no royalties as a writer or producer on these cartoons, but as an actor, I get royalties. So,
You get royalties? Are you sure?
If you're not getting them, you need to talk to your manager.
Okay.
I only get cast in things that I'm producing where I'm the boss and no one can say no. But I don't think I'm awful. I just don't think I'm amazing. But this animation comes back and it's got me reading like that. I'm like, even I'm not that bad. I'm not that awful. And I just thought, what are we going to do with this? This is horrible. There's no way. What's Tim going to do when he gets into the booth with this crap? So Tim goes in to ADR these lines, and he's matching the picture, and goddamn if Jamie wasn't right. Tim took every syllable, every letter of every syllable, and milked it, and by the time it was done, you would never know which episode I laid down that temp track from, because Tim just does his thing. And it was amazing. So yes, every once in a while we wind up having to record people as an individual because they're not available or something like that. But whenever possible, we try to get the whole ensemble together so that they can react to each other, so that, if there's a kiss between two characters, I actually ask the actors to kiss at the mic. That freaks them out. I say to them, you've all done live action, you've all had to kiss on camera, and they're like, this is different! I'm like, why? And because there's a lot of, and I'm like, it doesn't sound the same. It's a different sound, and it's not as intimate, and they get very self-conscious. It's really funny. But we want to get that reaction, that human sense of people together in a room, whether they're trying to kill each other or in love with each other or just friends or whatever. We want to get that human thing going.
Cool. I do have one more question. Raina, you said you're a sports fan, so who are you rooting for in the World Cup?
Oh, well, being as all my 3 teams have gone, I'm lucky because I have 3 teams to support, as most people only have 1, so England went first, then Greece went, then the USA went. So now I'm just watching and enjoying, I have to be honest. I think I would like Brazil to win because it's in their country and they need it. They've got a lot of problems in Brazil, and I think it would be really uplifting for the country if they won the World Cup. You all know there have been a lot of articles about the poverty in Brazil and all the money that was spent on the World Cup and all the people who are like, this money could have been better spent. I think it might, I don't know, I think it might somehow justify the money spent if they win it. But I don't think they are. I think now that Neymar's injured, I think that Germany might win it. I'm thinking that Germany or Argentina might win it. But I'd like Brazil to win it because of the reasons that I said.
How are you feeling about Wimbledon?
You know what? I'm so pissed off because I was actually watching Wimbledon and I switched it off in the 4th set so I wouldn't know who won, and then I could watch it tomorrow and not know who won. And then I went to my room to pack and I turned on ESPN because that's what I watch, right? And of course it was on the scroll underneath and I was like, oh, now I know that Djokovic won, but I'll still watch it tomorrow anyway. Yeah, I'm a big jock. My husband says he's married to a dude. Because I'm watching sports and he's watching Duck Dynasty, God help me. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He even bought the hat. I'm like, I'm not walking out the... I know. I'm like, I'm not walking out of the door with you if you're wearing that hat. It is bad, honestly. Well, he's from the South. What do you expect, really? Listen, I turned him into a Democrat from being like a military Republican, he was a military brat. I've turned him into a Democrat and I make him vote. So he'd never voted till he met me. I know, he was shockingly ignorant when he met me. I basically shaped him up. Why did I put Deanna Troy on him? No, actually, I went.
She's the nice one. Haven't you been paying attention?
No, I went Demona on his ass. Is what I did.
Yeah.
That's a whole different conversation.
No, actually, I'm going to tell you a little story that has nothing to do with anything we've been talking about. I hate Michael Vick. We all hate Michael Vick. Yeah. We all hate Michael Vick, right? What? He's a pig, exactly. Michael, you know that I'm of Greek heritage. I was watching the Eagles playing a couple of seasons ago, and I'm watching him play, and I'm like, okay, I hate him. I'm going to put a Greek curse on him. So I did. And 10 minutes later, he's carried off injured. So
You're a powerful woman.
So last season, I'm watching the game with my husband for once. Actually, he'll watch American football. He'll watch with me sometimes. So we're watching the Eagles again, and I'm like, oh shit, he's playing again. I'm going to renew the curse, honey. And he did one of these. You know. Yeah. So I renewed the curse. 10 minutes later, concussion, carried off, never doesn't play again for the rest of the season. My husband is terrified of me.
All right, well, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming. Enjoy closing ceremonies.